Today at 1 o'clock, official word came down from the team. Caitlin Clark not playing tonight against the Dallas Wings.
The biggest showdown of the WNBA season was set. Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers, two generational icons, drafted back-to-back, finally meeting on the same court. Over 20,000 fans packed the arena, expecting a once-in-a-lifetime battle. But just hours before tip-off, the unthinkable happened. Clark was ruled out. The hype crushed. The rivalry postponed. But then something wild unfolded. Without their superstar, the Indiana Fever didn't crumble. They ignited. And what fans witnessed that night wasn't just a game, it was a transformation. Aaliyah Boston stepped to the mic after the final buzzer and said 6 words that sent chills through the entire league. Every game is a home game. What happened in those 40 minutes may have just changed everything you thought you knew about this team. From the moment the 2025 WNBA schedule dropped, one game stood above the rest. Indiana Fever versus Dallas Wings. Not because of standings, not because of rivalry history, but because of the names. Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers, two college legends, two #1 picks, two fan bases desperate to see who would rise when the lights were brightest. This wasn't just basketball, it was an event. The Wings knew it. That's why they made a rare move, shifting the game from the 7,000-seat College Park Center to the NBA-sized American Airlines Center. That decision said everything. You don't just move venues unless you expect something historic. And fans responded immediately. Over 20,000 tickets were snatched up in record time. Social media exploded with excitement. ESPN hyped it as a must-watch. Influencers booked flights. Reporters cleared their schedules. The buzz? Electric. Everyone thought they were coming to witness the birth of a rivalry that would define this era of women's basketball. But what they got was something far more powerful. And it all began to unravel with a single update. Caitlin Clark might not play. Just when the hype reached its peak, everything shifted. 2 nights before tip-off, whispers started circulating. Caitlin Clark was dealing with a groin issue. At first, it seemed like nothing serious. But then the Fever dropped a bomb. Clark's status was suddenly in question. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Thousands of fans had bought tickets solely to see her clash with Bueckers for the first time in the pros. And now, that dream matchup was hanging by a thread. Headlines changed. Comment sections lit up with frustration. Even rival fans felt the sting of the potential loss. But this wasn't just about the fans. The Fever had just been embarrassed the night before by the Los Angeles Sparks. Without Clark, they looked directionless. Slow pace, broken offense. Aliyah Boston barely touching the ball. It wasn't just a loss, it was a warning sign. Behind the scenes, Clark was doing everything she could to recover. Rehab, treatment, constant evaluation. But the coaching staff made one thing clear. Her long-term health came first. They weren't going to risk her future for one game, even this game. Suddenly, the most anticipated night of the WNBA season was clouded by doubt. No Clark, no spark, or so everyone thought. Once word spread that Caitlin Clark might not play, the energy surrounding the game started to shift, and fast. The buzz turned into hesitation, the excitement started to deflate, and by the morning of the game, it was confirmed. Clark was officially out. No warm-ups, no minutes restriction, just out. For the Indiana Fever, it felt like the floor had dropped out. Less than 24 hours earlier, they had been humiliated by the Sparks. Without Clark running the floor, the team looked completely lost. No rhythm, no pace, no leadership. The offense sputtered. Aliyah Boston, their franchise big, barely touched the ball. Kelsey Mitchell was getting swarmed, and the rest of the lineup looked unsure of what to do next. Meanwhile, the Dallas Wings could smell blood. They had just watched the Fever fall apart, and they were gearing up for a statement win. With the crowd behind them and Clark sidelined, everything was lining up perfectly. On paper, this should have been a blowout. Even fans in the arena seemed to brace for a letdown. They still showed up, 20,000 strong, but the energy felt cautious. You could feel the disappointment in the air. The marquee moment everyone had come for had just vanished. This was supposed to be a night about Clark versus Bueckers. Instead, it now looked like a slow-motion collapse waiting to happen. But just when everyone was ready to write the Fever off, one unexpected decision changed the entire game, and possibly the entire season. While fans and analysts braced for a lopsided game, Fever head coach Stephanie White made a move that no one saw coming. Instead of scrambling to patch the holes left by Clark's absence, she rewrote the script entirely. Ari McDonald, known for her speed, energy, and defensive grit, was handed the starting role for the first time this season. It was a gamble. McDonald hadn't been a major part of the Fever's rotation, and putting her on the biggest stage of the season felt risky. But what happened next flipped the entire narrative. The moment the ball tipped, Ari McDonald erupted. From the very first possession, she brought a level of intensity that shocked even the Dallas crowd. She didn't hesitate. She didn't second guess. She pushed the pace like the court was on fire. Relentless drives, pinpoint passes, explosive cuts. The Fever didn't just survive the first quarter without Caitlin Clark. They dominated. 7 straight made shots to open the game. A 33-13 lead in just 12 minutes. McDonald looked like she'd been leading this team all season long. Her downhill attack broke Dallas's entire defensive plan. They had prepped to stop Mitchell. They had planned to clog the paint, but McDonald's speed turned the game into chaos, and the Wings were completely unprepared. Suddenly, defenders were collapsing on McDonald, leaving shooters wide open. Aaliyah Boston started getting clean looks under the rim. Kelsey Mitchell was freed up to play her game. The floor spacing opened up, and the Fever's offense, which had looked dead the night before, came roaring back to life. This wasn't just a surprise adjustment, it was a statement. The Indiana Fever were done relying on one star. They had depth, they had fire, and with Ari McDonald setting the tone, they were about to show the entire league just how dangerous they could be. With the defense scrambling to contain Ari McDonald's relentless drives, the floor suddenly opened in a way Aliyah Boston hadn't experienced all season. For once, the double teams weren't coming immediately. The defense wasn't keyed in on shutting her down, and that's when Boston made her presence known. She started getting the ball in the right spots, deep in the paint, mid-post, even trailing on the break. And with every touch, you could see her confidence rise. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rushed. It was pure dominance. Boston attacked the rim with purpose, showing off her elite footwork and soft touch. But she wasn't just scoring. She was doing everything, grabbing tough rebounds in traffic, contesting shots at the rim, directing teammates like a floor general in the paint. With the Wings so focused on containing the backcourt, Boston became the silent assassin. She moved with intention, making smart reads and exploiting mismatches. The chemistry between her and McDonald started to click instantly. Drive and dump off, pick and pop, high-low action. It was like they had been running this offense together for years. By the time the second quarter rolled around, Boston had already shifted the game's balance. Her inside presence forced Dallas to adjust, and that opened up even more lanes for the guards. She was anchoring both ends of the floor like a true franchise cornerstone. This was the Aaliyah Boston people had been waiting for, not just flashes of greatness, but full control of the game. With every bucket and every defensive stop, she reminded the crowd and the league why she was one of the most dominant bigs in the game. And the scariest part, she was just getting started. Just when it looked like the Fever were going to cruise to an easy upset, the Dallas Wings flipped the switch. You could feel it in the third quarter. The tempo shifted. The shots started falling, and the energy in the arena surged. The 20-point lead began to shrink fast. At the center of it all was Paige Bueckers. If fans were disappointed not to see her face off with Caitlin Clark, Bueckers made sure they still got a show. She lit up the court with one of the most precise, efficient, and dominant performances the WNBA has ever seen. By the end of the night, Bueckers dropped 27 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 0 turnovers. Let that sink in. 0 mistakes in one of the most high-pressure games of the season. It was a masterclass in control, poise, and basketball IQ. She read the Fever's defense like a seasoned vet, slipping through gaps, setting up her teammates, and pulling up with confidence when the moment called for it. Her performance wasn't flashy, it was surgical, and it brought the Wings all the way back into the game. The Fever's early fire started to fade. Their passes got tighter, their shots stopped falling, and the mistakes crept in. Suddenly, that huge lead was down to single digits. The crowd roared back to life. Paige was in full takeover mode, and it looked like the Fever were about to collapse under the weight of another late-game meltdown, just like they had against the Sparks. This was the turning point. The Wings were surging. Bueckers was unstoppable, and Indiana had one question to answer. Could they survive without their star when the pressure hit its peak? Just when it looked like the Fever were about to unravel, Kelsey Mitchell stepped into the spotlight and said, "Not today." With Paige Bueckers throwing haymakers and Dallas closing in fast, Mitchell did what stars do. She took control of the moment. But this wasn't just about scoring. Mitchell's performance in the clutch was a masterclass in decision-making. She didn't force shots, she didn't panic, she read the floor, attacked mismatches, and kept the offense flowing. And when the game demanded a hero, she answered. Pull-up jumpers, off-the-dribble threes, slick passes to open teammates. Mitchell put together one of the most complete games of her career, dropping 32 points and dishing out 7 assists while shooting an efficient 11 for 17 from the field. What made it even more impressive was her composure. Every possession felt intentional. Every move had a purpose. She played like a veteran who'd been in the playoffs 10 times over, calm, fierce, and fully in command. And it wasn't just about getting buckets. Mitchell made the right plays. When Dallas blitzed her on the perimeter, she found Natasha Howard in the corner. When the defense sagged, she fed Aaliyah Boston in the paint. She turned every double team into an opportunity. Her presence shifted the entire energy of the court. The wings could feel it. The crowd could feel it. Mitchell wasn't just holding the line, she was pulling the Fever across the finish line. This was supposed to be the night of Clark versus Bueckers, but with the game on the line, it was Mitchell who delivered the knockout punch, and in doing so, she reminded everyone watching that this team doesn't need just one superstar to win. They've got more than one weapon, and when the moment calls for it, Kelsey Mitchell is that closer. As the final buzzer sounded and the Fever sealed a jaw-dropping 94-86 victory, the crowd erupted. But it wasn't just Dallas fans cheering. Scattered throughout the arena were clusters of blue and yellow jerseys, standing, shouting, and waving signs. Fever fans on the road, in full force. And then came the moment that defined the night. Aaliyah Boston stepped to the mic during the post-game presser. Reporters wanted answers. How did they pull this off without Clark? How did they stay composed under pressure? How did they beat the odds? Boston didn't give a long speech. She gave 6 words. Simple, powerful, game-changing. Every game is a home game. It hit like lightning. In those 6 words, Boston captured everything this Fever team had become. Resilient, unified, bigger than one player. This wasn't just a win. It was a cultural shift. Fans didn't just show up for Caitlin Clark. They stayed. They screamed. They believed in the team. From the opening tip to the final seconds, that arena felt like Indiana had brought their home court with them. And Boston could feel it. She talked about how the support travels with them, how fans may show up for one player, but leave loving the whole squad. You could see it in the crowd. People who came for Clark were now chanting for Mitchell, roaring for Boston, and clapping for McDonald. That energy? It wasn't just hype. It was connection, a bond between a rising team and a growing fan base that refuses to let geography define loyalty. Every game is a home game. It wasn't just a quote. It was a mission statement, a promise that no matter where the Fever play, they're never alone. In a league often defined by individual stars, the Indiana Fever just proved there's something else entirely. A complete team. What unfolded in Dallas wasn't just a win without Caitlin Clark. It was a declaration. This squad is deeper, tougher, and more unified than anyone realized. Because while the media spotlight stays fixed on Clark, and rightly so, it's players like Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Ari McDonald, and Natasha Howard who are showing the league what this team is really made of. No one folded. No one hesitated. Instead, they rose together. Mitchell led like a true veteran, taking over in crunch time and keeping the offense fluid. Boston dominated the paint on both ends, finding her rhythm and silencing critics. McDonald brought chaos and speed, changing the tempo of the game with every possession. And the role players? They locked in. They played smart. They made the extra pass. The Fever pushed their record to 8-8, an even split that now holds a deeper meaning. They're not just surviving in the league. They're competing. They're climbing. They're third in the Eastern Conference, just a couple games behind Atlanta, and within striking distance of New York. And here's the kicker. This team is only going to get better. With Caitlin Clark returning soon, she's not coming back to carry a broken roster. She's returning to join a squad that just proved they can handle the spotlight without her. That makes them dangerous. That makes them unpredictable, and that makes them one of the most compelling teams in the WNBA right now. This isn't about Clark or the Fever, it's Clark and the Fever, and together, they're building something that could shake the league to its core. This win wasn't just a feel-good underdog story, it was a warning shot to the rest of the league. The Fever aren't waiting around for Caitlin Clark to save them. They're building a team that can win with her, without her, and in any arena they walk into. Next up, the Commissioner's Cup Championship game against Minnesota. After that, a crucial 5-game homestand in Indianapolis. And if this new version of the Fever continues to click like they did against Dallas, those games won't just be about maintaining momentum, they'll be about seizing control of the Eastern Conference. Think about the ripple effect. Ari McDonald has emerged as a true X-Factor. Aaliyah Boston is regaining her all-star dominance. Kelsey Mitchell is playing like she's on a mission, and now they've built a system that doesn't fall apart without Clark. It adapts, adjusts, and finds new ways to win. By the time Clark is fully healthy and back in the rotation, she won't be returning to a team that's unsure of itself. She'll be walking into a well-oiled machine fueled by chemistry, depth, and growing belief. The Fever have tasted adversity. They've answered pressure with poise. And most importantly, they've built something bigger than any one player. The league was ready for Caitlin Clark, but it wasn't ready for the Indiana Fever. What was supposed to be a night defined by one missing superstar became a moment that redefined an entire franchise. The Indiana Fever walked into Dallas without their biggest name and walked out with their biggest win. They didn't just survive, they transformed. Ari McDonald lit the spark. Aaliyah Boston owned the paint. Kelsey Mitchell slammed the door shut, and together, they sent a message that echoed far beyond the scoreboard. This team is real. The fans who showed up expecting to see Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers left talking about something even more powerful: teamwork, resilience, and heart. Those 6 words from Boston, "Every game is a home game," now live as a rallying cry, not just for the Fever, but for every underdog team daring to believe they can be more than what the headlines say. And make no mistake, this is just the beginning. With Clark on her way back, the Fever are gearing up to become one of the most complete, dynamic threats in the league. If you believe this team is building something unstoppable, comment "I've got the Fever" down below. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss a moment from this historic season. Because if this game showed us anything, it's that the Fever aren't chasing greatness, they're already becoming it.